Hi, and welcome back to the Hole in the Head Moto Storytime Podcast. I'm Andy, and I have a lot of old motorcycles. This season of the podcast is an evolving conversation with one of my closest friends that ultimately results in a ridiculous endeavor. So I do suggest starting at the beginning. In this session, the inevitability of adventure quietly expands. At this point in our recordings, Blaine and I had no real ideas or schemes beyond just showing up, and really didn't know how this was going to be any different than any other conversational podcast on a given topic. But you can't connect dots that don't exist, so we persevered. Without any dictate of arc or motive, beyond just talking about some things that brought us a little joy. And if nothing else, we could just make fun of people who were very much like ourselves. So when an old topic returned from an unexpected direction, it seemed coincidence. But well, that's all I'm actually going to say right now, so let's hear it. I hope you enjoy it. Season 2, Part 3 of the Hole in the Head Moto Storytime Podcast. In this episode, off-road minivans, drastic overgeneralizations of an entire culture, expanding your budget for opportunity, and my kingdom for a metric fastener.
Okay, I believe we're going to talk about Craigslist today, right?
We could do, yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, as sort of an intro, of course, I found something else on Craigslist, a 1939 half-inch metal bandsaw. Now, that's great for the shop. Some big old wheel, iron and pulley thing, right? That's going to be great. So I'm on my way to get it. I get to Tombstone. I stop to get gas because I'm going out east of Tombstone, which is like desolate.
Yeah.
And I stop to get gas. I notice there's some water leaking out of my truck. I open the hood and I touch the return hose that goes from the catch bottle to the radiator.
Sure.
And broke off it just broke in my hand.
The spout from the catch bottle?
Right. No, from the radiator
going
to the catch bottle.
Yeah, the little overflow valve.
So there you go. So I get to come home and jimmy a repair. So, but anyway, it all started out as a Craigslist and it related to automotive. So.
Well, so back up. Which truck?
My Mercedes.
Oh, the bus. Okay.
Nope. My Mercedes ML, my little M-Class four-wheel drive.
Oh, okay. Oh, so when you say truck, you mean my
Barbie Jeep?
Your German minivan. Your Barbie Jeep.
My German mall van. Yes, that's what it is.
Man, okay. Just to clarify.
No, they are very effeminate vehicles.
Well, I mean, yeah. Okay.
They are. But I'm gonna cut it up and make it an off-roader. It's gonna be cool.
Now that said, now I remember that you mentioned lifting an ML, and now every time I see one, I think, oh, that wouldn't be so bad. Like, if jacked up with some bigger tires would be kind of beefy.
If you jack it up and cut the bumpers off, put some big tires on it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty credible off-roader. I drive it out here all the time. It's been better than my Land Rovers ever were.
Well, another thing that I consider too is like old Astro vans. Apparently they're all-wheel drive.
What?
Yeah. So we're in the grocery store parking lot the other day and I looked over and there's this like prepper, right? Like,
yeah, right.
But he's in like a lifted Astro van.
What?
I was like, what?
That's kind of special and kind of horrible.
Yeah, and I remember looking into this at one point, and I want to now that I've said it out of my ass, but Astrovan all-wheel drive. I'm pretty sure that they were all-wheel drive.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so there's some people making into like rally, rally. Yeah.
That gets my respect. But, I mean, in that horrific, I can't stop watching it sort of a way.
Yeah, this is gonna go wrong. It's probably gonna be fine, but what could happen? But yeah, I saw one in the parking lot, and I'm like, okay, that's something. I wonder
what's that dirt road race that happens in Oregon where they drive across Oregon with beater cars.
Not Lemons. Not you talking about
No,
that?
it's not Lemons. It's something else. Anyway, that would be perfect to put in there because it's a lot of dirt road stuff. And guys take cars that don't belong on dirt roads, and that's part of the fun of it. And they spend a day trying to flog these things about 300 miles. I forget the name of it, but it looks just like total fun. But a four-wheel drive Astrovan with cup holders would just be perfect.
Yeah, and one of the side sliding doors.
Yeah,
Get in.
Yeah. I think I'd make everybody sit in car seats.
Yeah.
Like adult car seats.
Well, that's what racing seats are anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, now I'm thinking, okay, well, again, time, space, and money. Hey,
that could be pretty fun.
But I wonder if those are going to be the same as like whatever the equivalent was 20 years prior that eventually came back in vogue as a desirable thing. Like,
you know what I think is one of those, which totally surprised me, is that I never thought like the Jeep Grand Cherokees and those kind of horrible,
like a Woody.
Yeah, the horrible Jeeps from the 70s. Like I've always liked the pickup. The pickup I thought was cool.
Yeah.
But I think, were they Cherokees then or Comanches or what were they called?
The Grand Cherokee?
Grand Cherokees, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's right. They had wood on the sides and sometimes worse. And I just thought they're heavy and they're gas suckers and they don't have any suspension. But they came back and now it is like a little collector deal.
And they're very handsome. They're very handsome.
Yeah.
They're sophisticated now.
And people restore them and you can find parts for them. So it's a viable project. So
yeah. Well, I was looking, I think I had that Jeep Stir.
Yes.
That I wished I'd kept, but I was really looking for a Gladiator. Jeep Gladiator truck.
Yeah. That's the one to get.
And there were a couple that came up that's like, well, I should probably get that, or at least look into this, but there's probably going to be something else. I'm not, time, space, and money, whatever. And now you can't find them. Yep. Especially up here. Yep. You can't find them up here.
I passed on 5 of them that were probably $700 a piece.
Yeah.
I thought, well, obviously I can get them anytime I want. And then now I can't find one for less than $4,000.
Yeah. People are proud. But okay, so you're going to get this bandsaw.
Yeah. Anyway, but I guess it was all about, the one thing that can get me out of the house quicker than anything is the possibility of a deal on Craigslist.
Well, do you need a bandsaw?
I could use one.
You have space for one.
The first time in my life I have space for one. So I thought, why wouldn't I acquire it for $75?
Yeah.
And especially since it's not made in China and it's not some cheap American repop with plastic buttons on it.
Yeah.
It's an actual old 1939 made in Connecticut out of cast iron. There's probably no safety guards on it, and which brings up a question is that there's no safety switches, right? I mean, you just turn it on and you better know your saw is on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And if you want it off, you better turn it off. And in the meantime, if it'll pull up your t-shirt and cut your arm off, well, I guess you learn, don't you?
You do that once.
Yeah. Do you think that we're better off for shop safety now that you have saw blades that can sense body heat and personal perspiration and shut themselves down? Is the overall ability to be safer better now?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Well, overall safety?
Yeah.
No.
You think people are dumber in the shop?
I think I think that people are a little dumber. I don't know if they're dumber because of it, but I think it's indicative of a little bit being dumber. In other words, that's one small thing that, hell yeah, it's saving fingers. Yes, right. It's saving
I've seen the YouTube. It saves a hot dog every time.
It saves hot dogs all day.
I've never seen anybody, destroy a hot dog in an unfortunate manner on a table saw since saw stop.
And that's great. Like that's a fantastic thing. But I think it's indicative of, and it sort of speaks to a larger point of, yes, it is good that things are safe inherently, that they do a dangerous thing, but I wonder what it does like at a macro level.
Yeah.
Of what I mean, like lane sensing ability.
I was going to ask you about that.
Thing. Yeah.
Do you think people are better drivers with lane assist and and assisted safety features and eventually self-driving? Will they be better at operating motor vehicles?
So that's the thing is like, are they better at operating it? No, they're not better at operating a vehicle.
No,
they're safer, but they're not better at operating a vehicle. You know what I mean?
That's an interesting distinction. Is that if you depending on how you look at statistics, at one point, yes, the overall numbers of safety might be greater because of self-driving, right? Mm-hmm. Or lane or whatever you call all those features. But the overall ability of a human to operate a motor vehicle, that's just plummeting.
Yeah, and I think that you could make the case or make the analogy to like seatbelts, but that's a false equivalence, right? Like, because there are things that you can't control that a seatbelt will help you in.
Right.
But the lane sensing feature the primary, if not only thing it solves for is not paying attention and falling asleep.
And I rented a car with it and nearly killed myself the first time because I thought I had a space, and of course it's a rental car, so I'm driving the shit out of it. And so there's a space that I can merge over into, but I'm going to have to aggressively do it and maybe cut the guy off next to me, which I'm willing to do. I just decided this guy deserves it. I'm getting in that space, damn it. And it's my rental car, highly insured. I don't care. So I goosed it and shot for the space. And it has that correction thing. And I pulled over into it and it pulled me back. And then I had to violently pull it back. And then now I got the fishtail and kind of did a little bit of overcorrecting before I got it. And it wasn't like death defying, but it was unnerving.
It's a little unnerving. Yeah.
Yeah.
If nothing else.
So.
Oh, do you need to get that?
Sorry, that's the. I should take that call because that's the call that's coming in that says that my 1968 Beretta ex-Italian police pistol has arrived at the local gun dealer, and I can go pick it up.
That's a forgivable phone call if you want to take it.
Yeah, no, I'll go get it later.
Well, okay, so that may be a good segue.
Okay,
because one of the things that I would also like to talk about is reflective of Italian things.
I like Italian things.
Yeah, I like Italian things too, but inevitably, the Italian thing I need to work doesn't work when I need it to work.
Yes.
It'll work on a nice sun's out Sunday, but when I need it to do its job, it may or may not.
Sorry, I turned. I need to go get that pistol. Sorry. No. It's just...
it may or may not do its job. And,
which I wanted to say is just like every Italian I've ever met.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, true Italian in Italy. Italian. Try to do business in Italy once. Just try it once.
So I got lots of stuff. Yes.
I'm sure you have more than I do. I tried it once for 9 months to do a single transaction.
I've had the pleasure, and I won't say the professional pleasure, but I've had the pleasure of working with Italians in different manners of things. And I'm not saying professional pleasure because it is the most infuriating fucking transaction sometimes.
Yeah. Just
to nail it and be done with it.
Oh my God.
So one time in Houston, I was installing, used to work for art installation, and we were installing a Cartier exhibit. So it was just basically, a bunch of super secure display cases of diamonds. Or it's Cartier. Okay. And so the crew that were installing this on every instance of the exhibition around the world were all Italian. The nicest guys.
Delightful
great guys
people. Yep.
To just talk, shoot the shit, go outside, have a cigarette. Like it was the most pleasant work environment you could hope for. Like
if you weren't trying to get work done, it's so lovely. Yeah.
Or if you weren't beholden to someone else.
Yes.
Then it's great because they blah blah blah. Here's close counts.
Yeah.
Fine. Kisses, besos, cigarette. Yeah, it's been 10 minutes. Let's go get a cigarette. Super, super nice. In my case, one of them spoke French and no one else spoke any language other than Italian.
Okay.
And on our crew, I spoke a little French and no one else spoke any Italian. Or wait, did I say? Nobody spoke English. On our crew, no one spoke Italian. I spoke a little bit of French, and one of their crews spoke a little bit of French as well.
Okay.
So we were getting through broken Italian and broken English and very, very broken French on how to install this multi-million-dollar exhibition.
Right.
And it was fine. It's like, not bene. It's fine.
Yeah. I think there's, I mean, they just seem to think that there's so much not to worry about, which I kind of respect in a way until it is you need something on a deadline. And the basic difference between, America and maybe Germany, you can write something on the calendar and we kind of mean it, and everybody else thinks that's lovely to shoot for. I hope it unfolds that way magically, but I'm not going to put any effort into making it happen on that day.
If we just substituted the persons for sewing machines, if we talk about Italians as just a sexy machine, it looks good, sounds good, but it may not, it's not going to do what it's supposed to do all the time to spec.
Mm-hmm.
The American side, I have a Singer.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a heavy duty Singer. Turns out the model name is called heavy duty. It's not
That makes sense.
actually a heavy duty machine.
Oh, it was marketing.
Yeah, it's pure marketing. It's just a regular goddamn sewing machine that just says, this is the heavy duty model.
Okay.
And it's capitalized and with a little C at the end. It doesn't work for shit. It breaks every other stitch. It's just a piece of shit. And it's like a well-known piece of shit in the sewing community.
Okay.
And then I also have a FAF, which is just like it's
which the proper pronunciation is pafaf.
It's pafaf.
Yeah.
German. Just there's no frills. If you want to look for the patterns that it's capable of, well, you just lift this lid and look, because they're not going to put it on the outside. Like, why would you have all that guff on the outside? You know. And I had to make some, so apparently I sew. So I've been making these cotton masks for my family and my mom and all.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to do it on my Vigorelli, right? Which I bought. It's an old green, heavy metal. It's just a good looking machine. It's got a kickstand when you lift for the bobbin. It's just a good looking thing. And it's a piece of shit. It doesn't work. They don't make parts for it. And I can't get 3 stitches out of it. And so I abandoned it, went down to the sewing machine place and just bought a FAF, used FAF. Came home, done. I did like 20 masks in the time it took me to, set the bobbin on this one to get it, whatever. So it occurred to me that, of course, it's the same thing for motorcycles. If I have to be somewhere, I take the BMW.
Right.
You know what I mean? If I just don't want to futz with it, I'll take the BMW.
There's that thing in me, though, that says, which I totally agree with, but I'm actually would be proud of myself for taking, the Italian bike, and having a disaster with it, which everybody hopes to avoid. But I kind of want to have it to prove the point that one, it's shit, but also two, that I can take some shit. You're better. I somehow just kind of like that.
Yeah.
It appeals to me.
Well, there is that piece too, where the inevitability of failure it just adds to your credibility riding it. If someone knows that, like, that shit's gonna fall apart.
It's my way to thumb my nose at other people that are less mechanically inclined, even though I'm only marginally mechanically inclined enough to get the most simple things done. Yeah. But because I'm unafraid, or
giving the appearance of unafraid,
giving an appearance, or just have enough ego to overcome it, it's like, I'm driving a Jaguar on the Baja 500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they don't know how tight my ass is right now, hoping that the clutch cable doesn't break, which is a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, no, I remember my big business transaction in Italy was I'm trying to buy 20 sets of forks from Paoli. Paoli is a big company. I went to Indiana when they were at there's a motorcycle show. I forget what it's called, but it's kind of like the what's the big auto equipment show in Vegas?
SEM
or SEMA. Yeah. SEMA. Well, there's one kind of like that for motorcycles, and it's in Indianapolis most of the time. So I went with one reason, because I couldn't get the people from Paoli to talk to me. And I thought, I'm going to go to the booth because they have a booth there. And I went there and I met this guy and I spoke to him. And I said, listen, I want to buy 100 sets of forks, but I want to get 10 sets first. And I want to mess with them and valve them and do whatever I need to do. And then I'll let you know what the rest of the 90 will be like. But I want 10 to mess with. And then I'm going to buy 90. I said, I know it's a small order. Are you interested in doing this business with me? Well, yes, of course. Okay. And I said, and I sit down and I meet, 3 different guys, and they're all impeccably dressed and, the cleanest nails, I mean, these people pedicure and manicure themselves to the nines, and I'm working on bikes. Yeah. So of course, anyway, that's what I remember. And so I have this guy's name and this email and this other guy's name and his email. I'm thinking, I'm going to do this transaction. So I get home, I wait 3 or 4 days because I know the show there. They went home, the jet lag thing or whatever. I put in a message. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but it was month after month of getting shifted around to somebody else, and then somebody's gone, and then whatever it is. And then finally, when I said, I've started this in January, it's now June, I would love to take delivery of these things. I said, I would consider coming and everything. I just still want the initial 10.
Yeah.
Right. I said, I'll come and pick them up and bring them home in my luggage. It's worth it to me because I've already rented a shop. I've got people on the hook. I'm losing money every month, and I just want to recover these 10 sets of forks so I can go forward. And of course, there's no need. There's no need. And so finally, I'm just about ready to buy the plane ticket because I'm going to force it through. I'm going to go there and walk down there and force it through. And then they send me this note. And it's the Google translated note from Italian to English, right?
Uh-huh.
Pleased to inform you, Mr. Demlo, the upcoming holiday of which is 6 weeks, very traditional in Italy, shall take place, placing your order in queue for sometime in October.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I bought one set of forks from Paoli, and I never was able to buy the remaining.
Like 99. You can't give him your money.
You can't. I could not do it.
But in a way, I admire that. Like, I admire that. I really do, because it's just like, I mean, no, I got other things I want to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. I appreciate you wanting to keep me sustainable and, participate in the commerce that I'm trying to, provide. But I don't know. The Alps are really pretty right now. It's a super nice day out. So
there's just something, and I guess, you've been around enough to know, is it uniquely American to think that if I'm the purchaser, that means I have the money?
You have the right.
That means,
that's totally American.
I get to dictate something, but that's not necessarily true.
That service culture. When I lived in London, that was a hard lesson. Is because you go with this. There's a reason that it's arrogant Americans. Is because it is arrogance on the outside looking in, but here, and especially me being from Texas, it's like the service culture here is one that. A customer's always right. Yeah. Period. Like I want to give you money for your service. As a business owner, you should be doing whatever you need to take or whatever you need to do to get my business. But that's not the case.
That's not how it works.
Not at all. And so like from the coffee shops all the way up to the business side, it is, I mean, to be fair, maybe better, but it's more of a mutual transaction. And, you're benefiting by getting the thing that I'm providing, and I'm benefiting by, the transaction. So it's just,
well, I think I could even live with it if it was even remotely mutual, but it's not. It's totally in their favor. I'm the guy with the money that's begging.
Yeah.
And they're deciding,
and you're going to go to them
today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah, but it is like, maybe not, but I think it also it is reflective of like, what's the goal, right? Mm-hmm. Is the goal for me and my business to hit those numbers and hit that quota this month so that I can set the bar higher for next month, that I can get a bonus and blah, 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 blah. I don't think those incentives or that sort of compass is the same, where the goal isn't make $1 million. The goal is enjoy your life or whatever.
I embrace that a lot. I mean, there's
when you're not trying to,
well, but at some point when it's time to do business, isn't it okay to say, all right, let's just agree to some dates.
Yeah.
And let's just do it that way.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't stand the constant renegotiation of the date. The dates mean nothing. And I would ask him politely. I'm saying, if I were to return a call to check up on this, at what point should I return the call? Or should I, about when, oh no, we're going to take care of that. We're going to take care of that. Okay. Yeah. Well, if it goes, at what time, when do you think that will be taken care of? Because eventually I have to get to that specific part of it. And I don't mind if we're going to have an exchange, if you want to have a coffee and talk it over or whatever. But at some point, it seems reasonable to say, okay,
some expectations.
Mr. Demlo, March 27th, that's when we're going to get this out for you.
But that would just be committing and then all of a sudden you've set this date that you got to do something by. Well, who wants that? Yes. Who wants that pressure?
Well, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
I don't want that pressure either. I have a guy that asked me to do some work for him. And I just said, you know what? I would rather buy your car and fix it and then maybe sell it back to you rather than work for you on your car.
Yeah.
Because I just cannot stand to have a client.
Well, it is interesting. The business expectations don't swap meets are the same thing in that there's no haggling. Like the notion of like, will you take this is just,
that's a no-no.
It's just, it's rude. It's kind of rude, right? Like, it depends on who you're talking. I mean, the older guys for sure, they say, this muffler, how much do you want for this muffler? $100, €100. Will you take 80? And he's like, no, why did you even ask me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and
you gypsy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that one's gonna get. So yeah. So then it's like, no, I'm not. I'm not gonna do that. And I was like, well, why are
Yeah.
you? I don't get why you're here for a swap meet then. Like, it's not. It's just a different thing.
Okay. Well, someone's got to lead us through that. Luckily, I'm not buying anything in Europe at the moment. So
Was that for the Terra Nostra thing?
yeah. Yeah. Yes.
And you're trying to. Did you tell them that? Because they may have taken offense to you Americanizing their.
They may have, but I was also talking a lot with the guys from Ducati in those days, and a couple of those guys became friendly to me. And then they did a big celebration because the Monster had been transformative for their company, in terms of sales. And I'm assuming that internally there was always some strife over that bike because it was just, kind of a put together from what was left over. And it turned out to be wonderful. And I wondered if there was inside Ducati, there was the guys that, design and draw the stuff in their inspired manner, with all the correct cheese and wine present all the time as they're doing it. And all of a sudden, a bunch of guys from the parts department said, listen, I bolted all the leftover shit together, made this thing, let's call it a Monster. And it turns out everybody bought it. Right?
Yeah. Well, they're very proud of it. At the museum and all their gift shop is very much.
Well, they did a big show about, how the Monster, how influential it had become as a motorcycle. And they featured one of my bikes in it, so I'm looking at their factory stuff. So so they may have thrown up in their mouth a little bit seeing what we had done to it. But nonetheless, I mean, at one point, we were conversing about it and they were helpful and they were complimentary and so I don't know if the guys at Paoli said, had a differing opinion and decided, there's no way we're letting that horrible thing because at that point it was like a Ducati cannot go off road. And it was like, dude, don't you understand? You've done this before.
Yeah, this was a whole
like 1959. I think you had a Scrambler.
Yeah,
it's like I'm not the first one to want to take this off road. But anyway, nonetheless, it doesn't matter. I don't make the Terra Nostra anymore, and I don't have forks from Paoli.
Well, yeah. So
I got one set.
It's all moot. Well, okay. So we're just segue after segue here because here's something else I want to talk about. And I know I've driven the topic talking points here, but lots happened in the last couple of days.
That's fine.
So, a friend of ours, or more directly, my cousin, right, is interested in buying herself a motorcycle. Her husband has a KTM, big, off-roader or dual sport. And she's quite a gal because she is constantly surprising me in her interest, let alone enthusiasm or ability, but her interest in motorsports, fast cars, dumb stuff. Right.
I tell you what, just a note to the girls. All right. Really, if you want to get along 150% better, play with boys that play with toys.
Yeah. Or hang out with boys that play.
Whatever. Just get dirty, shoot guns, ride bikes, do the stuff that the boys do. Even I don't care if it's a pink sanitized version of it. And it is so endearing and quite hot.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So so all that to say, my wife is not interested in those things. And so when there is a female in my life who if there's anybody in my life who's interested in it, especially if there's a female in my life who's interested in it,
you get a little Twitter pated.
Let's do it. Like, yeah, how can I help you, man? What do you need from me? Do you need my truck? What do you need? Right. What can I do? Right. And so she and her husband called and said, hey, we're looking at getting a motorcycle. And we're looking at, she sent me 2 or 3 examples and they had a budget about $4,000 to $5,000.
Okay.
Which for me is like the moon for a first bike that you're going to get dirty. Right. So
yeah, that's one you could probably drive away. Right. Yeah, you can probably ride it home,
which is such a novel concept. Right. Like, and so, but that said, that's a perfect, it's a great budget. Right. Like, yes. And so I had to sort of I had to not project. It'd be like, no. You need to put that 3 in the bank and then take 2 and then go buy 2 pieces of shit and put them together. But nope, she wants to get a full bike and awesome. So we established that she had a budget and we established what kind of bike she wanted, right? Like something for street, but then something she wouldn't mind going off road, but then also something she wouldn't mind laying down in the front yard, right? Like, cause she's inevitably going to learn how to ride. And for some reason, they were constraining their search to just the Seattle area. Completely.
That's a mistake.
Well, yeah, it's understandable for a rookie.
Yep.
But like when I do my search, I know that at any given, year, I can look for anything between Seattle and Dallas. Anything in that sort of 1,000-mile corridor is on.
I nearly bought a BMW GS R100 in Argentina only because it was already in Argentina. And I was trying to explain to everybody, is that, do you realize how cheap that is? It's already in Argentina. Now all I have to do is get it and drive it home. But yeah, you should buy motorcycles anywhere in the world you want to go.
Yes. So once we got, and this kind of goes to what we were talking, once you've expanded those budgets, be it financial, time, whatever, once you've expanded them, then, you've already put the air in the balloon. It's already stretched, right? So that becomes comfortable. So then she's looking in like Northern California and Idaho and Nebraska, so anyway, she called me a couple days later and they found oddly enough, a BMW G650X Challenge.
Yes.
Right. And I thought, that sounds really familiar.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was like, I was just talking about it. And I don't know if that's the one. I know Blaine was looking at something like that, but is that the one? Turns out that was the one.
Wow.
So not the one that you were looking at in Phoenix, but turns out there's 2 or 3 in the Pacific time zone that are around $5,000.
Okay.
This one she found in Sacramento, and it's kind of he's kitted it out. He replaced that shock, that rear shock.
Right. Everybody talks about that.
He put a windscreen on, some, a little bit of carbon, made it cute. And he's been riding it. Right. Okay. And so it's got like 30,000 miles. Anyway, long and short of it is, they've managed to have a conversation with the guy. And I'm like, okay. And then I get excited. Like, I'm not even engaged in this really, but like, okay, what are you going to do? Like, we'll do what, so, okay, here's what you do, and then meanwhile, I'm finding, backup plans.
Right.
You know what I mean? Cause like, the chances they're going to get to Sacramento, for this 5K bike. Yeah. Right. So I've got them a Himalayan and a Royal Enfield Himalayan lined up in Wenatchee, Moses Lake.
Let's come back to that bike because that's one we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And they're kind of cheap new.
Totally.
Yeah. So it turns out that they call the guy and have a great conversation with him. They lowballed him without being offensive. And he came up, met him halfway. It was all a great conversation, threw in some extra parts. And so now they pretty well seal the deal, and they're going to pick up this bike at the end of the week.
They got the Himalayan.
No. BMW. The
BMW. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So they're going to pick that up, and I'm so excited. Like, but to be fair, once I found the Himalayan, I was kind of partial to the Himalayan because it was closer, and like we could get it like that day. You know what I mean? So whatever.
Helping a friend buy a motorcycle is almost as pleasing as having one yourself, but in the end, you still have your money. But it's exactly like making a purchase. I mean, you get involved in it. You just go along with the heartbeat of it. It's like, oh, they accepted your offer. Oh, it's great. Or, you can just live it as if it's happening to you. But then when it's finally over, you still have all your money.
You still have your money. Yeah. And you don't have any less room in the garage.
Right. And you don't have to lie to anybody about, no, I'm just working on it for a friend. You don't have to go through that whole deal.
It's just win-win.
Hey, I'm glad you brought up the Himalayan because, what's funny is we were talking a while ago about, we're both clearly brand snobs in the worst way. Yeah. And we're the first to, criticize other people for being that way too. But nonetheless, this Himalayan brings up an interesting thing because one, it's Royal Enfield, which puts it in a category of, that's an old iconic British brand, right? Mm-hmm. That's now made in India. But nonetheless, Royal Enfield has a little bit of brand snobbery to it before it became, a mass-produced, cheap
it's
Indian bike. Yeah. Now, however, they end up being pretty good.
Yeah.
So now what's funny about it is that do you see the sort of funny mix of it has some snob appeal, but yet it's completely a low-priced, mass-produced import. Yeah, right. So it's like, so it might as well be a Chongdong from China that's got but because it had that Royal Enfield some of that heritage infused into it, it looks to me, it makes it a lot more interesting to me.
Yes.
And then the other layer of that is that I love the fact that all the other brand snobs who are worse than I am are going to say, well, it's produced in India, what's their quality control like, or whatever the deal is. People are going to, because it's low priced, people are going to say that there are things that are unrefined about it, that it's antiquated or whatever. But yet in the adventure bike category, having something that is basic, that could fall over and doesn't break $1,300 worth of plastic, is a pretty good value.
Yeah.
And then the people kind of picked on that bike. They said it's a little bit underpowered. If you know what you're doing, it's going to be totally pleasant off road and usable to you on dirt roads. And if you have to do a long highway thing, you made that trade when you bought it. I mean, all of a sudden you're not going to go, oh man, this isn't as fast as my other V twin, 1100. This isn't as fast as my triple. Well, it's not as smooth. You bought a single cylinder bike.
Yeah.
But what if you were happy with that and just said, you know what, at about 60, it kind of thrums a little bit. So I ride at about 58 and I just take my time because I'm crossing the country. I'm on vacation, or I'm exploring. I don't have to go 72 miles an hour all the time or whatever. Yeah. What do you think of it? Have you looked at it much?
I've looked at it. I think it's a little ugly, but that's kind of why I like it. I mean, it's very, very simple. It's very, very rudimentarily designed. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's like, maybe it's Eastern European car.
Yes.
It's a box with doors.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's a tank with a low spot that you sit on, and then it goes up again because you got to put stuff on the back. Like it's just super simple and rudimentary.
But one of the things I think the test, here's how you should test possible adventure bikes. If you're going to adventure bike ride it, if you're not, that's different. Then you're buying it for another reason. But let's say you're going to actually ride it back and forth to Argentina. You should be able to go to the dealership. And if there's a row of Royal Enfield Himalayans or a row of the BMW GS, the series, whichever one you want or whatever, you should be able to take the whole row and knock them over. All right. And they should pile up on top of each other and all fall down. And then when you pick them up, you should total the damage. And if there's not a lot of damage, then that's the adventure bike that you should buy. And I think you could tip over 20 Royal Enfields on top of themselves.
Yeah.
And there would be nothing to buy. If you tipped over 20 BMWs or Triumphs or whatever, I think you'd have $17,000 in plastic injection molded formed luggage mounts and back racks and all that kind of stuff that is broken and has to be replaced.
Well, and everything is, and I guess too, what I mean, it's simplistic, is that like nothing seems like it couldn't be replaced by just bending some sheet metal or cutting a piece of
That's the magic of it. Can you imagine riding it somewhere and something happens, you pull over, you find a guy that has a welder, or you find a hardware store that's got some bolts and some zip ties and a piece of, angle iron. And with you could make something to put it back together and keep going.
Yeah. All the bolt heads are exposed.
Yeah.
Like everything is. Yeah. I mean, if you have to have a single cylinder hidden under a tank, that's not a BMW. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you know what? That used to be one of the things when I was working on our Terra Mostra bikes, is that every hole for mounting something on the bike that had a tapped blind hole that you had to thread a bolt into, I drilled all the way through and put a through bolt and a nut on the back. Because when you goof that up in the middle of nowhere, you can't get that bolt out, without a lot of trouble. But if if it's got a nut on one side and a bolt on the other side, you can you can drive it out, or you can do whatever and you can get nuts and bolts anywhere. But try to find, some of these specialty fasteners that look so good in the showroom, that looks so nice. And then people will look at this and say, well, it's kind of crude, looks like a hardware store, Well, to me, that is one of its greatest attributes, because you can find a hardware store anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And you can get something and you can bolt your luggage back on, or you can bolt your, handlebar, back on. There's a ton of things. Your foot peg, that's usually what it's going to be. And you could probably make a shifter, by bending it back out, and, there's things you can do.
Yeah. Hey, do you remember when we went to see the Cannonball Run come in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that reminds me of when we went to see the Cannonball Run. And I mean, you were there, the story, but like, to recap, we're rolling in this long sort of where the Cannonball Run people are going to come in, which is this, what is it? Was it pre-1915?
I think they have to be 1936 or older.
But at that time, I thought it was 100 years, or maybe
there's a category for that. But I think anybody with a 1930 that year, because the guy that won it was on a 36 BMW.
Okay. Well, regardless,
anyway,
it's old bikes, right?
Old oily bikes, so except for the BMW.
Yeah, of course. So pre-war bikes are driven across the country, and they're pulling into Burlingame. I think we were south of San Francisco, and we roll in kind of late. Everybody's set up on the side of the road, waiting for everybody to come in. We're frankly in the way, right? Rolling in through the parade route. And so that we have to go all the way through these people to get to the other end of the place to park. And everyone's staring at us. And Blaine's ahead of me. And on his BMW R90 that you had just finished.
Right.
And then I'm on the CX 500 that I was very proud of that it actually ran. And we're rolling in and everyone's just looking at us like, these guys, and from my point of view, they're like, admiring us. They're thinking, who's this guy with a boxer and a Kawasaki tank? And man, that's a weird paint scheme. That's good on him for doing that. And who's this guy with is that a Guzzi? Nope, it's a Honda. Man, I see what he did with that seat. That's good. And so I'm just like, yeah, welcome to the party, everybody.
Right.
Everybody can relax now. And we get all the way through this quarter-mile sort of gauntlet of people looking at us and roll up in a very dramatic way and throw that kickstand out, step off the bike. And I realized that my rear fender was hanging off, had completely detached itself and was just hanging on by the
light
tail,
wiring.
Yeah, by the light wiring. And it was bouncing on the back wheel, like bouncing on the back wheel. And it's like, oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So instantly dashed any ego. But fortunately, there was a Harley Davidson dealership, right there.
So they were used to people driving in with shit falling off.
They were used to, a lot of Japanese bikes coming in, apparently. Right. And so I went in to, I said, hey, I guess I got to buy the bullet. They will have bolts. I need 2 bolts. Literally threaded and a nut. I need a bolt and a nut. That's all I need. 2 of those.
Right.
And so I go in, and then, of course, the service department's way in the back, go back, and there's a line, right, for some reason. And I finally get to the guy. I said, hey, man, I need some hardware. I need a couple fasters. Okay, what year? I said, no. It's don't sweat that. Like if you got extra land, I just need like 1.5 inches. I'm doing this in standard, because
right. You're interpreting, right?
Yeah, I said I'm like 1 inch to 1.5 inches with 1/4 inch bolt with corresponding.
Yeah.
Depth. He's like, well, yeah. If you don't know the year, is it like a wide glide? Like what style of bike is? No. I really just. I mean, you could just go look on the floor, like, or I can whatever.
Isn't there a box back there? Yeah,
just something. Yeah. And he kept going through that. I said, you know what? It's a 1982.
Yeah.
Dynaglide. I don't know if they made. Yeah.
Right.
And then I realized the more specific it becomes, the more I'm boxing myself. God damn it, I don't know. I said, okay, does anybody here know on what part of a Dynaglide a bolt would be about this long? Anyway, and so he calls another guy, and we finally figure out that it's off of whatever. They have bolts, oddly enough. And so he found the SKU, and he goes back there, and he brings them out, and each one is packaged individually.
Right.
Meaning each bolt and nut.
Right.
So 4 pieces. I have 4 different bags.
Right.
With 4 different things to beep.
Right.
So he does that, and it was like $13.
Right.
For these, I mean, they were beautiful bolts, but they were super shiny,
Mm-hmm.
And so $13 later, and I said, okay, well, there's that. So I went outside and then I had to replace them. But in order to replace them, I had to get one of the existing bolts off of my bike. So then trying to find someone with a metric socket at this event that's all Harley. And I said, hey, has anybody got, hey man, I see you got a toolbox there. It looks pretty good. Yeah. In the back of your Dodge, you have this massive shop. Hey,
Right.
have you got a 10 millimeter box? Oh man. Yeah. I'm like, where the fuck am I? Like, what is this? It's like water everywhere, not a drop to drink. Like,
Yes.
there's
yes.
so much hardware and tooling and fasteners in this, 50-foot radius, but
Yeah.
no one knows how to find anything in it. And, and it's like, yeah, God damn. Do you have a crescent wrench? He's like, oh, I think so.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's funny.
Long and short is we finally
I have two memories of that day, and one of them is the fact that, three memories. One of them is I saw a guy come in on a Henderson 4, and he had a waxed cotton jacket, and it was covered with oil, and it was he had been slinging, how those things sling oil out of the valve gear as you ride them, up top. So it's all collected on his belly and through the crotch, and it's dripping off of his boots. And he came in, and he was a white-haired guy that had, enough oil. He's just kind of yellow-haired, kind of rotten beard, just because. And the guy had been on the road for 35 days, trying to campaign this Henderson across the country. And it nearly made me cry because I just thought that's what's worth doing.
Yeah, that's superhero.
I've got a conference call coming up that doesn't seem nearly as interesting, as that. That guy's going to next time what'd you do last week? And it's like, well, we got some key customer engagement things going on, and we activated this, and whatever the bullshit is that and this guy's going to say, oh, I made it coast to coast on my 1926 Henderson, but I had to do a valve job in Indiana, spend the night in a guy's barn and get a valve out of a tractor, and grind it down with a hand file. They're just such different worlds, and one clearly better than the other. So that was one memory. The other one was that they awarded the guy that won it, who rode a 1936 BMW that did not leak oil. That looked like it had been detailed every day, but it hadn't been. And the guy had the highest average speed. The guy just killed it on this 36 BMW. And then he stood up to accept his award. And of course, he's wearing a modern Aero Stitch jacket, and there's not even a bug on it. It's just absolutely clean. He's got a titanium adult sippy cup, and he's, discussing what the event was. And it's just like even in 1936, BMW guys were BMW. Apparently. So that was my second memory. And the third memory is that walking back to our bikes while you were trying to round out bolts, I noticed that there's a guy maybe 2-3 slots down from us that had a Marini 3.5. And I looked at that Marini and I thought, I'm going to kill Andy. One of these days, I'm going to try to kill Andy to see if I can get his Marini.
Yeah, if I have to murder someone, I'm eventually going to have a Marini.
Yeah, even if it's Andy, I would do it.
Well, there you go. Okay, well, we're at time.
Okay.
So I'll see you on Friday. So there you go. See what I mean? Thanks for listening. Stay tuned to hear more unfold. Next week, I am a little tardy, but with good reason. You can find us on the socials at Hole in the Head Moto. Drop us a line, or better yet, subscribe and leave a review on iTunes or wherever you got us. Love it or hate it, I do appreciate the feedback. So, see you next time.